Hello, I'm Robin and welcome to the August edition of Molten Music Monthly. So how was your summer? Was that alright? Did you have a nice time? Did you go anywhere nice? Do anything nice? See anybody nice? Eat anything nice? Swim in anything nice? It's just a wonderful time to be alive during the rain, wind and cold of our English summers that we have at the moment. But hey, I've just spent the weekend at the Greenbelt Christian Arts Festival, which is probably what I would call my spiritual home. It's a place that unfolds all of my bias and prejudice and spreads it all out across a muddy field and says, ha! Everything is bigger and better and wider and fuller and deeper and more extraordinary than you could possibly imagine. And I need to hear that. I need to hear that from time to time. My highlights of the festival were, well, undoubtedly Flamey Grant, which was just fantastic. Such heart and such soul in this drag queen of a worship leader who just blew my mind and cuddled my heart to such a degree that it's quite unfathomable. That, and then, perhaps the opposite end of the spectrum, was Bob Vylan, which was just an explosion of righteous anger, the likes of which I've never seen. I don't think. It was extraordinary. A fantastic time, and it all culminated, for me at least, in the most amazing service of communion I think I've ever been to. Thousands of people in a field throwing and distributing bread to each other, having to move around, having a live link up with Palestinians in Bethlehem. It was extraordinary. It was simple, it was minimalist, it was uncomplicated, and it was just full of such love and inclusivity and acceptance that it gives you hope. It gives you hope. Anyway, let's get into all the synths and stuff. Right, first off, our friend DivKid has a new module out. It's called Trace. He's built it with Vostok instruments this time, and it's a really lovely, simple idea of giving you 4 inputs to 1 output, and a lovely modulatable, scannable, interpolated mix between all 4 of those inputs. So you have a slider, input 1, input 2, input 3, input 4, and that's sent to the output. So at the basic level, it's a 4-way switch, but it's far more than that, because as you move from one to the other, it works out the maths in between. So you don't get just merely a shift from one to the other, or a crossfade even. You get this interpolated journey from one thing to the next thing. This means, well, all sorts of things. I mean, he's done a great video on it, obviously, with lots of great patches, but you could imagine you could stick an LFO, different LFOs into each one, and then as you move between them, the modulation that's coming out of the output to the one thing you're controlling is changing and modulating over time. But it's also shifting between those things, so as you're interpolating between that triangle wave and that square wave, or whatever it is that you want to put in there. You could shift between sequences, you can shift between envelopes, you can shift between whatever it is you want to stuff in there. It will also handle audio, so you can mix different oscillators through, which you then scan between, sending out to a filter or something along those sorts of lines. It's kind of one of those things that's devastatingly simple, and yet you can see how you can use it time and time again in patches just to add a bit more transition, to add a flavour, to add a change, to add a development, things like that. Brilliant. I'm hoping to get one soon. I think I'm due to do like a DIY build of it and then a review. So that's fun. I don't have it quite yet, but I should have it very, very soon, I believe. Talking of which, he's also done a really great video on the Glasgow Synth Guild Eon Procyon, I think. I don't know what it's called. Anyway, it's a stereo filter. Now, Glasgow Synth Guild are an outfit of builders, kind of born from Instruo, who build modules or manufacture modules for all sorts of different people. And every now and again they pop one out which is just kind of entirely theirs. And this is one of those. It's a stereo mighty morphing filter that lets you morph between different filter types through a stereo signal. So you've got 2 channels stereo going in, a filter on either side, and you can have those morph either together or actually opposed to one another. So you can have like high pass, low pass, and then going the other way as it morphs, which is quite interesting. You can also use them in series. If you just run down one side of the filter, it will go out and normal itself back to the other side, which means you can't use it really as a mono filter. Well, you can, but you'll be going through two filters. Is that good? Is that okay? I don't really know. The front panel is kind of gorgeous. It has this mesmerizingness about it, where it's all curvy and floating around the place, which it's, you know, at some point lends a kind of a complexity to it, because you look at it and you go, oh, I'm not entirely sure where I'm supposed to go with this. But I think that's a bit of an illusion, and actually once you start to figure out where the controls are, it becomes just this thing of beauty. The filter cores themselves are based around or inspired by or somewhere down the road from the Korg MS-20, a filter that we all love and we all enjoy, that's prone to screaming and overly resonant self-oscillation. There is compensation, so you don't lose all the level once you pump up the resonance, which is something all filters should be able to do these days. It also has a built-in VCA, so you can it's. I guess the idea of sticking a VCA in there is partly so that you can miss out that stage, because you've got an envelope coming in already controlling something. You can have an envelope also controlling the VCA. It also allows you to send voltage when that's not patched directly back into the FM input, so you can do some fine tuning on the cutoff, which is an interesting idea. Microrack. We saw this, or rather we had a glimpse of this at Superbooth. I think I spoke about it before. And what it is, essentially, it's a modular system built on breadboard. Now, breadboard is this stuff that you prototype stuff on. You build electronic circuits on it. Now, it's not that entirely. What it is they are making modules that then plug in to a breadboard to allow you to make different connections between them, to normalize things to each other. So they're using the breadboard format as a way of mounting the circuits that they've put together. You're not actually building the circuits themselves, is what I'm trying to say, because breadboard would indicate you are building the circuits. You're not. The circuits come, the modules come as little modules, but they just fit into here as a way of connecting them together, which is kind of genius, and also absolutely opens it up for your own modifications, because you can just stick components directly in here and have them wired to the bits that you're talking about. Anyway, they've subsequently launched on Kickstarter, and after a couple of days they just crashed straight through their goal. They've now done double their goal, I think, so this thing is definitely going to happen, which is fabulous. I mean, it's fabulous because what it says to me is that people are still interested in modular. I keep hearing out there that, modular is so over, man. You know, it's just all about, I don't know what it's about now. I imagine we're going to cycle through into completely featureless boxes, which apparently do a lot of stuff if only you could work out how the menu works. We're going to go back to that era, I think, of synthesis any moment now. But however, something like this makes me think that maybe that's not the case. Maybe we are still into modular, and the main barrier to entry is the cost, is purely the cost, because this is designed to be compact, small, funky, but also affordable. And that's pretty special, pretty fantastic, I think. So what do you get in a kit? Well, for about 100 quid, you get like an entire modular subtractive synthesizer with VCOs and filters and modulators and envelopes, VCAs, all that kind of stuff. They also do a Eurorack panel adapter thing, so you can mount a couple of these breadboards, stick them into your Eurorack, which is great. I'm fascinated by this. I would throw some money at the Kickstarter if I had any money, but I don't have any money at the moment, so I can't do that. But I would, most definitely, given the opportunity, I would love to buy a big chunk of the stuff and give it a bit of an explore. I think that would be fantastic. I think this is great. I mean, it's a bit like AE Modular to some degree, the Tangible Wave stuff, and I think they're also doing a little bit of a collaboration between the two. I've just never quite been captured by the AE Modular vibe. It's never, because I'm a very visual person and I love the way things look, and I don't love the way AE modular looks, and so I find it difficult to really enthuse about it and throw myself at it. Whereas this, because of its nakedness somehow, because of its the LEDs and the lights, the components been everywhere, it really appeals to my eyes as well as my ears in the way that it works. So maybe this is the one that's going to crack into doing Eurorack cheaper. Maybe. Anyway, it's still got like 3-4 weeks to go on its Kickstarter campaign, and they should make a whole load of money with a bit of luck, and even reach all of their stretch goals, which I can't remember what they are. Exciting things. It also makes me think that I could make modules for this format. Maybe that's the way to advance my interest in DIY, to actually get to the point of creating a module. That would be the format to do it in, because that's going to be the most straightforward. We shall see. Anyway, it's looking great. Go and check it out. At the other end of the scale, maybe, it's Analogue Solutions. What have they done now? Well, they've decided to offer us sort of an entry level into the Maximus platform. Maximus is this enormous synthesizer, a kind of tower, bookcase of a synthesizer. The Maximus 4V, it's a 4-voice version, just 4 voices. This whole thing is squeezed down to 4-voice analog synthesizer awesomeness. It's kind of like the Oberheim 8-voice. That's very much what it's like, in as much as you have individual synthesizers for each voice, and those are kind of tethered together in a system. So you've got 4 synthesizers to play with, each one with 2 VCOs, an envelope VCA, bunch of filters, a little sequencer, all of its own. So you could run 4 individual rows of stuff going on, right? Got it? Stuff going on in each one, and each of those is controllable completely independently. Or you can kind of control them together using the sort of master section at the bottom, which has got extra modulators and other bits and pieces in order to integrate it through. You can also get a keyboard and ribbon controller for it. Fantastic. How much is it, governor? Oh, it's 10 grand to you. Let's just snap. 10 grand. I got one right here. You can have it. Take it away with you. Fantastic. It is fantastic. Undoubtedly fantastic. It's another world, but it is fantastic. Just look at it. What an awesome thing that would be to have a look around, eh? So yeah, and they've also recently done a new sequencer, 64 steps of analog sequencing, which means it's a great big square panel with 8 rows of 8 knobs. Each with a voltage knob and a switch for gates and that kind of thing, and all of that big huge thing runs a single sound because it's a single 64-step sequencer. However, you can split it into 232, so you can get a little bit more out of it, which is good. I think that's a worthwhile thing. But it looks fantastic. This is working with proper analog stuff in the proper analog way, in big format, no messing about. Doing it for real, for the propers, and it's just fantastic. I think, as I don't have a whole lot of stuff to talk about this month, I thought I would mention our old friends Behringer. Woohoo! Yay! Behringer, that's fantastic. Woo! Hey! See, because I've lost my grip on what they're doing. Really, I don't really know where we are anymore. And Facebook throws up a constant stream of new things and new projects that they're on, and I don't really know where we are. So maybe you can tell us where we are. What is it that's actually available anymore? I mean, I kind of get the feeling that the first stuff they did is now discontinued. Can you still get their like Minimoog thing and bits and pieces like that? Can you still get those, or are they now Mark IIs? I don't know. I just don't know. I haven't been keeping up. But I had a quick flick through Facebook, and currently what they're talking about, which doesn't seem to be in the shops yet, you've got the LM drum, Lin drum thing. You've got the BMX, which is the OBX drum thing. Is that right? DMX thing? I can't remember. It's another drum machine, isn't it? You've got the Polyosk, which is an Oscar clone. You've got the Mutator filter bank. You've got the Eurorack RS9 drum machine. You've got an Elka copy, a PG Tips Wave copy, the Pro 16 and Mini Pops, and even their own BCR controller sequencer thingamajig. So tons and tons and stuff still coming along. I think I was vaguely aware that the MS5 arrived at some point, and also the the UBXA, and now I think a UBXA desktop version. Oh, and last month, of course, we talked about the Proton. Great, so lots of action coming from Behringer. Everybody, I think, in the industry loves the renewal and reinvention of vintage and old bits and pieces, and that's what we really appreciate Behringer getting stuck into. It's interesting, it's fabulous for people who collect these sorts of things out there. There's just such a wealth of synthesizer possibilities. It's the most extraordinary thing. Also, I should add, I was terribly shocked by Dan Clarke's passing, very unexpectedly. He's the guy who has for a little while now been running the Behringer Synth YouTube channel. He does all those demos. He's that spunky kind of boy band looking guy, and he passed away last month. Very, very terribly sad, and I express my condolences to his family and his friends. And just to say that I spoke to him a few times. He was a really nice guy. I really appreciated the job he was trying to do at a very difficult period, and sometimes controversial period at Behringer. But he always did a really good job. Produced some great videos on gear and was just always lovely to deal with. Tesseract Modular have produced something quite extraordinary in the Vinia. See, I was writing an article about the Oxy Instruments Coral just the other day, and sort of talking about how it is pretty much the only multi-channel, multi-engine, multi-timbral Eurorack module out there. Not anymore. This is going to have a go at that. So this is an extraordinary digital module with a front panel, a couple of knobs, and a whole stack of patch sockets. The idea is that it generates audio, so it can generate modulation. It can generate LFOs, envelopes, and other voltage modulators, but then it can also generate sound. It has two sampled engines, one that takes samples from an internal memory, and another one which takes samples from the SD card that you stick in the front. It then has the usual range of Mutant Instruments Platts type sounds, a couple of strong and virtual analog and multiple Watsits and bits and pieces. So it has all of those sorts of engines inside. But then it has a mass of effects algorithms, 21 odd, I think, something like that. So you have all of these audio inputs, you have audio outputs, you've got CV inputs and CV outputs, all of which you can employ simultaneously to go through 8 different engines all at once, I think, and you can chain it all together. So the effects are not just one effect or two effects, you can chain up different effects. You can add these effects to the instrument sounds that you're using and the synth voices that you are using. It's extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. I mean, I'm guessing there must have been a shift in microprocessor or something to just give us more power, more room, more energy, and Tesseract have jumped on that and given us this extraordinarily wide, potential of an extraordinarily wide array of sounds and noises and ways to use it. Incredibly versatile, extraordinary amount of stuff, all stuffed into a tiny little screen, which is going to be a nightmare. Going to be a nightmare to operate. It just is, all right. And they might have the most elegant interface in the world, but it's still going to be a little bit of a pain. But hey, let's see how it goes. The other thing they do, I believe, is you can set up macros so that you can control lots of different parameters from a little bit of voltage coming in and out, that kind of thing, which sounds like a good idea. Be interesting to see it in action. I've heard it a bit, and it's like, well, it sounds a bit synthy and that, but it's actually getting down to how you do the things is going to be what makes it really interesting. Erica Synths have released another one of those Hexinverter modules. This time it's the Mutant Rimshot. The Rimshot. I always wonder about percussion modules, because you seem to have a lot of module, a lot of control just to make like a tick or a dump or a bonk sound. Now, that's only because I'm not clever enough really to fully understand the enormous potential and versatility that's available within the dunk and the tick and the toing time sounds. So it's really a reflection on my ignorance as opposed to anything to do with the module as such. But we do put an awful lot of effort into producing a relatively simple sound. But this is an analog Rimshot, and because of the way that the filters are working and the fact that they've developed it a little bit, it can also do claves types of sounds. So kind of a tick and then a tick and a tonk maybe it's a tick and a tonk type module. So you've got 3 types of filtering in there, you've got decay envelopes and pitch and bits and pieces and stuff going on, and oscillators and all those sorts of things you use to make percussive sounds. Yes, awesome. Ericssons are going to send me one so I can sit there and really deeply ponder the complete nature of it. And I have a few other modules like that, like the Mandrake from Maelstrom. Got that here, which is on my list of things to really have a good look at. And it's a kick drum, but with a gazillion controls in order to completely and utterly finally tune that kick drum to be whatever it is that you want it exactly to be, like a kick drum. So yeah, I'm up for it. I'm up for blowing my mind and expanding myself on exactly what it is these things are about. Also, the ResonantEQ, which we saw at Super Booth, is about ready. They're going to send me one of those as well for review, which is way out of my comfort zone. This is a 10-channel filter bank, kind of like a posh resonant graphic EQ, I suppose. So that's going to be interesting to see what I make or what I can do with that. So I do like to get pushed out of my comfort zone from time to time, because it really makes me think. I've got so many modules that would make me think. If only I give them the time to think about it, then I really would be thinking about them, and that would absolutely make me think, I think. Okay, a little bit of software for you. This is the Microwave 1 from Waldorf. Microwave, if you remember, back in those dark days, was kind of a featureless blue rack box with a big red knob, tiny little screen, absolutely no way to access any of the parameters. But it was, and I suppose still is in some cases, a wavetable hybrid synthesizer that ran these digital waveforms through analog filters. Well, Waldorf have decided to bring it back in the form of a software version called the Microwave 1. It's great. It comes with all those glassy wavetables that came in the original. You can crash those wavetables through perfectly modelled, in fact 2 versions of filter from both the A and B revisions, and go to town on them. It's 8 voices with 2 oscillators per voice, into which you can load your wavetables, which then have emulated 8-bit kind of crappiness, aliasing and falling apartness as you did in the original. If I remember, all I remember about it really is it being super fierce. Just, you start off with a sound which is already kind of a bit sort of wincing on the ears, and then you stuff it through these incredibly resonant filters which just make it gnarl itself like it's going to drill a hole through your head. That's my memory of the Microwave. It might be completely wrong, I might be mixing up with something else, but that's a general vibe that I seem to remember getting from it. So it's pretty fierce, I think. You can layer up within the software itself 8 different instances, or 8 different instruments all bound together to produce the most extraordinary sounds, I imagine. I understand that Waldorf have decided to model it kind of right down to absolutely every piece of code and timing, oddity and quirk. Everything is there except for the terrible interface, because they have decided to bring that out and to allow you to access all the parameters in a software GUI kind of way, which is great. Expert sleepers have finally done it. They've finally completed their task. I don't know if it was a side quest or whether it was the main thing they were trying to do, but it seems like they've spent the last, 10, 20 years trying to produce an 8-in, 8-out, ADAT interface. They keep having a go and then go, oh no, there you go, there's just outputs. ES3, just going to give you ADAT outputs. I know we have another go, the ES6, here you go, 6 inputs. Or was it outputs? I don't know. One way or the other. 6, but it's 8 channel. But here's 6. In fact, there's another module, ES7. It's got 2 more channels on it. You can add that to it to make you 8. Oh, all right, great. So how do I get 8 in, 8 out with expert sleepers things again? I don't know. It's some combination of 16 different modules, I think. But it's fantastic. It really is. However, they've now sorted it out with the ES10. Of course it's 10, because it wouldn't be 8, would it? Because that would be crazy. That would be silly talk. They've already got an ES8, which is something else. Which is not quite 8 out, in and out. Oh, expert sleepers, you do tickle me sometimes. The ES10, right? This is the one. 8 in, 8 out, DC coupled, ADAT. What's it for? Well, I guess a couple of things really. If you have a computer with an audio interface that has an ADAT expansion port on the back, you plug it in to this module and you can have either 8 channels of audio going out or coming in, or 8 channels of CV going out and coming in. So you can modulate from your computer directly into your modular without having to go through some kind of MIDI to CV conversion. It's right there, provided you've got the right software doing the right stuff. Fantastic connection. Great way of expanding your setup. Or you can use it for audio rather than CV, so you can record 8 channels of audio directly into your computer from here without having to go through a big audio interface, just doing light pipe into the back. Brilliant. Or if you like external mixing through digital mixers, then ADAT into the back of your mixer. That sort of thing. Brilliant. Totally brilliant. I can't believe they didn't do it 5 years ago. But here we are, ES10, fantastic. Good job. Nicely done. Like it. Arturia have a new controller. This is the high-end one. This is the posh one. The Keylab Mk3. They've had the Keylab Essential, I think, has already been Mk3. I think. Hasn't it? Could be. Anyway, but this is the proper one. This is the Keylab proper size keyboard. Semi-weighted. Superb premium feel to everything. Aftertouch. And even velocity depth perception or some such. Anyway, big keyboard, you know, nice looking, premium feel, all that sort of thing. You've then got 12 pads. You've got 8 or 9 faders and knobs for door control and door integration. The idea being that the controller will more or less automatically integrate with your door and other instruments. In particular, Analogue Lab. Arturia's Analogue Lab, which is their kind of center point for all of their different instruments. You will run directly with it, with all sorts of stuff coming up on the little screen. Great little screen. You don't have to look up on your computer. You can navigate through your screen. Kind of like Native Instruments did many, many years ago with the complete stuff. But yeah, Arturia are all over it now, even if they are a few years late. But that sort of integration kind of pushes your MIDI controller into being a proper piece of hardware. And you feel that, I think, when you use it. You do appreciate that integration. Because when it's not there, you then miss it terribly. But this level of integration, which feels like the sort of thing that should have always been there, it's like, surely this is how we've always worked, haven't we? We've always worked with this level of integration. And you go, well, no, actually, you're forever having to map stuff and faff around and muck about. And then you lose it all when you load up another project. You've got to do the whole thing all over again. So this steps us towards the idea that this integration is going to exist and it's automatic. It's not quite MIDI 2.0. That's still to come, I believe. It's coming in the next month or so. You know, properly being announced and released and stuff. But we're not quite there yet on this particular MIDI controller. But this gets its hooks into its own software brilliantly. So any Arturia plugin, any Arturia bit of software, it will map itself. It will do adaptive mapping, I think. So it will change and remap itself. Who knows? So you could be just turning a knob and then suddenly it's turning something else. Who knows what that means? We'll find out when we actually get to give it a go. So yeah, interesting. I mean, the evolution of the MIDI controller is a fascinating thing where we keep going and keep moving, keep finding another way to do it. But I really think that we've come to a point now where that we've done all we can do with the MIDI spec. I think all this proprietary behind the scenes business of trying to get your own stuff to run is fine and good, and we like that. But that next step into MIDI 2, where we actually get to control everything simply without having to remap all the time from the MIDI controller, is, I mean, that's the utopia. That's the paradise. That's the taste of heaven that we're going to get towards. Hopefully it's sometime soon. In the meantime, hey, let's see how this one goes. It looks really nice. I have one over there. I'm due to review one for Sound on Sound, and that's my next thing. That's my next thing. Should be on my desk. I hope to get that done about a month ago. But hey, doing it now, all right? I'm going to get on with it now, and I'm not going to look at anybody else's review at all. I'm going to do it completely blind. So that's exciting. Talking of MIDI controllers, just as I was editing this video, Novation popped up to say, hey, we've got a whole bunch of new controllers. Why don't you have a look at these? So I thought I'd better include them, as I've just about got time to squeeze them in. Funnily enough, earlier in the week, They sent me a whole box load of the things. Every single one. I've got sitting in a big pile over there because I'm doing a review. Doing another review. I'm doing lots of MIDI controller reviews at the moment. But I don't know that I needed all of them, but that's what they decided to do. So this is the Launchkey. Is it version 4? Could be. I quite like the Launchkey. I've got one. I've got a mini one just like this one, and I use it quite a bit. So I'm going to be interested to see how this compares. Also the big ones too. But hey, it's right here, so I don't know a whole lot about it other than this is it. I mean, I can make assumptions about these pads, that it's going to be for launching clips and things from Ableton Live. I believe one of the things that interests me is the arpeggiator, because I really love the Mutant mode. The way the timing and the notes could be pushed around on the original Launchkey. I don't know whether this has this. I'm not seeing it as a button. I know that there is some kind of customizable arpeggiator in here with note changes and bits and pieces. I just wonder if it's as easy. Probably not. Who knows? There's also door control in here of some degree. I mean, this is always about Ableton Live, the launch keys from Novation. That's what they love, and that's where the integration is really, really tight. With other doors, maybe a bit of transport control, that kind of thing. I just feel that the Mackie Hooey connection to other doors is so clunky. It really is old, and feels like you've got to set an awful lot of stuff up just to get some simple transport and other bits and pieces. But by the by, it all comes down to how well it works. The bigger ones, of course, have faders as well and knobs on which to control stuff, and you can map it all through the software interface to control both hardware and software. It has a MIDI out. I believe all of them do. Encoders. It's not that different from the previous in terms of this one in particular. So it'll be interesting to feel the feels, and the fact that I've got the Arturia Keylab Mk3 and the Novation Launchkey Mk4 sitting side by side. It's going to be interesting to see how they compare. Oh yes. So yes, reviews for both of those coming up in Sound on Sound over the next couple of months. But I'll let you know how I get on with it. Just as I was editing last month's video, Moog released the Muse. And so I wasn't able to include it. But I've now had a month to think about it. And here we are. In fact, we've had quite a long time to think about it because there was leaks of this all over the place. We saw it at the Super Bowl. We saw Andrew Wang had one, little bits of it. Other bits sort of crept out about it. And we were going, oh, is it called the Mirror? Is it called this? Apparently it's called the Muse. Polysynth? Is it not? I don't know. I mean, what I thought, what I hoped, what I dreamt it might be, would be an awesome Moog polysynth that we could all actually afford. And I was half right. Because I think this is probably one of the finest synthesizers I've ever laid eyes on. I love the way it looks, and I love the way it sounds. I mean, in the demos that I've heard, it's like all synth. And exactly the sort of synth that I like, the sort of synth that resonates with me. That vintage sound, that legendary classic sound of something sounding like an analog synth. That's really what I like. And this fulfills that beautifully. I mean, it looks like a proper synthesizer. Now, I played the Moog 1 when it first came out. I was privileged enough to have a good go on that and enjoyed that, made videos about it, even when we were at Thomann Synth Reactor back in 2017, could be. And I felt it was an overwhelming synthesizer. I felt it was the sort of synthesizer that would make me feel bad simply because I didn't really know what I was supposed to do with it. It didn't invite you in to engage. It sat there like a posh instrument, like a violin, and said, you're going to have to learn how to use me. And if you don't know how to use me, then haha, you're never going to find out without years and years of training. And so it's kind of intimidating, kind of like, yeah, I can see and sense that this is an awesome thing, but it just feels too complicated and too unwieldy for me. The Muse? Complete opposite. The Muse just says, come play, come, have a look at this. You absolutely know how to use this. Look, it's this. You can see it all. The way that the knobs are familiar. The way that you can see things that come like from the Rogue and from the Liberator and other old synths. There's old stuff there. The sound, it's pulled from their old modular stuff, old bits and pieces all crammed together. So a bit like the matriarch, a bit like the grandmother, but in a much more mature way somehow. It's like an outpouring of that. It's like an evolution of that. So you take all of those ideas that were in these great chunky plastic synths and pour it into something which is elegant and nuanced and balanced, and you just go, wow, this just sounds fantastic, and look, I know where everything is and can move everything. And then they've done some nice things like put in a really interesting sequencer that can have multiple channels of parameter automation going on, so you can record all sorts of movements into the sequencer, and it also has a probability engine to allow you to swap between, I think, 2 different levels of sequencer, as well as different parameters and other bits and pieces going on. So there's an immense amount of interesting creative stuff you can do on the synth without having to plug it into anything else at all. Fantastic. It's about half the price of the Moog one. So, it is, in some respects, to some people, a synth for the masses. Not for me, mind you. It's like, what? I thought, if it was 1,500 quid, then I thought, yeah, that would be a killer. That would just blow the market wide open. But it's not. It's like 3.5, isn't it? Of course it is. What was I thinking? But anyway, it looks lovely to me. What a brilliant job. I'd love to have a go on one at some point. So, yeah. Another one we've seen before, a 4MS Meta module. This is now shipping, I believe. In fact, I've even heard that some people might have one. I don't have one, sadly. This is the Mega Meta module, which runs patches from VCV Rack. It can run up to, apparently it has inside it, rather, about 160 different modules. So it doesn't run the whole of VCV Rack, but the ones that are compatible with it, a huge chunk, are all free with a free version of VCV Rack. So you can build patches, port it directly into the Meta module, and have that patch, that entire modular patch, running within your modular. That raises a whole load of different questions for me, as in, why would I want to do? Why? At one level, it gives you an opportunity to try different modules. That totally is a good reason to have it. You could try just one module that you don't have. You want to see how that works. You put that in there and try it out and go, oh, that's interesting. That can improve my workflow. I'm going to buy that. Or a combination of modules. But then it starts to balloon into these patches and patches. I don't know really how I feel about that. I mean, it has quite a lot of controls on it. I think it's 12 knobs and lots of ins and outs. So you have the power to control a lot of parameters. So it's not like there's a lack of control like perhaps you have on the Tesseract Vinia. So interesting. There's also on Modular Grid a whole bunch of expanders have appeared for it. Some buttons and knobs and extra I/O. Which I think is an acknowledgement of the fact that you're going to run out of control very, very quickly if you actually want to use it with a hands-on kind of way. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know that I would love it, but I would be interested to find out what it's like. Would it end up being a common thing? I really don't think so. I mean, on the other hand, if you're performing live, but then if you're performing live, why not just take a laptop? But again, it's a hybrid workflow. So if you're performing live, you could have patches which you've saved and then can then reload. And then you've got other stuff, maybe filters and modulators that you can route into it live. See, that's an interesting idea. Everything has an interesting idea if you think about it hard enough. So, yeah. We'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing what people think about it once it's in some proper grubby hands. AM Synths have been busy over the summer, putting together extra modules to expand upon the work they did with Behringer on the ARP 2500 clones. I still have a complete Behringer 2500 sitting over there. It's sat over there for years now. And I will at some point turn it on. I promise, I will. I just haven't got around to it yet. But it looks really nice sitting on the bench over there. Anyway, AM Synths, Rob Keeble at AM Synths is a guy who designs all this stuff and has emulated and replicated all of the ARP circuitry and brought them into Eurorack brilliantly, as he has. And the modules that he's introducing now are the 1013 fixed filter bank, the 1028 sequential volts expander. This is an expander to the sequencer that comes in the Behringer lot, which I can't remember exactly what that does, but I knew that it was really useful. There's the 1031 multi-purpose filter, which is a state variable filter, I think, you can use for multiple purposes. And there's the 1035 triple modulator, or mixer. Not entirely sure I understand what that is. But anyway, it's great to see these new modules coming along. It's great to see an expansion for some of the Behringer stuff, because I do kind of get this feeling that with the modular side of things, Behringer went, let's just do the Moog modular, let's do the ARP 2500. And they get people in to do that, they replicate it, nobody knows how to use it, and they kick it out there and go, there you go. And then all the people who were working on it and did it are then moved on and go somewhere else. And it just is what it is. And it's there and it's purchasable. Nobody really knows how to use it. It's not going to be developed any further. And I think that's a bit of a shame. You know, I think Behringer's modular policy or plan, whatever you want to call it, is just a bit weird. And I wish they'd get it together. I wish they'd have a roadmap, and because it has the potential of being really exciting to do interesting things in modular at a really good price. And it sort of fits and starts, and like this old stuff that's odd and doesn't really integrate very well, but is beautiful in of itself, and then this new stuff which just tend to be borrowed designs from other people. You know, they have the opportunity to do something beautiful with it, and I'm always slightly disappointed that they don't seem to. But you know, thumbs up to Rob at AM Synths for coming up with new ideas and old ideas and resurrecting stuff just to make that whole system live longer and become more and more interesting. I've shown you this before, which is the Foxtrot quad filter from Blaknblu. It's a really interesting concept of having 3 filter models based into each of these 4 channels that then can work either independently or together, which gives you like this bandpass shifting around, this series or parallel linked ability to normalize through itself to give you this massive filtering opportunity. Fantastic, but big. So I've recently reviewed this for Sound on Sound, and I was just thinking, wouldn't it be great? I mean, why can't we just have one? Because the sound of this is fantastic. The sound of each individual filter model is really interesting, and it's fascinating having them together. Just being able to switch between them very, very quickly is extraordinarily educational, as much as anything else. So what am I saying? Anyway, so Blaknblu have been reading my mind, and they've just released a single channel version called the Foxtrot Duo. Duo for a single channel. I don't know what people are doing with all of these numbers and bits these days. It doesn't seem to make any sense anymore. But my understanding is with the Foxtrot Duo is that it's a stereo filter. So you've got 2 filters in there. Duo, so 2 channels, I suppose, which you can use separately or differently or something, and then pan them about the place and do interesting things. So that's great. But ultimately, what they've got there is a great sounding emulation. It's all digital. It's all digitally emulated bits and pieces. There's no analog filter circuitry going on in there. But what they've managed to do is model these classic ladder SEM and MS-20 filters just superbly in a fantastically sounding and analog to the core sounding digital module. So it'll be interesting to see the one all by itself, but that's the sort of thing that could fit in your rack, because the big wide thing, that's so specific, that's so niche within a niche in order to have that much filtering going on, either in a polyphonic voice kind of way or just to use them individually. It's a lot of space. So having one, I think is a great idea. Well done. This just in that you can now pre-order the Minimoog Book. The Minimoog Book from our friends at Bejukes Publishing, who make all those wonderful coffee table books about synths. They're our favourite synth publication house people, and this is the latest in a long line. In quite a small but focused, fascinating and deep line of books about synths. So this is all about the Minimoog. Everything you could possibly want to know ever about the Minimoog, including interviews and examples, patch examples, how to use it, how it all works, the circuitry behind it, the history, all that sort of stuff packed into this one book. I understand from Kim Beynon, the guy principally behind these projects, he feels he needs to go away and do something else for a while. I get the feeling that the intensity of writing these books, of putting all this effort in drawing all of this information out, because there's a ton of information out there, there's a ton of use, but lots of it is scattered and not very deep. And so I imagine pulling all of these threads together and making sure that they're right, because so many people are writing articles about synthesizers. I know I write articles about synthesizers myself, and during my research I often find conflicting accounts of all sorts of things, and also really badly written stuff that doesn't really seem to have researched anything at all. So the amount of information out there on the internet has become to the point that it's really difficult to find what is right and what is true amongst it all. So I imagine putting this book together has been quite taxing. So Kim, mate, go and sit on a mountain somewhere. Breathe in the mist and relax, and come back with something fabulous. In a while, but look after yourself. And finally, this month, I heard the news, sad news, that Finale has been discontinued. Coda Finale, as it was. I remember it back from my days at university in the mid-90s somewhere. We were forced, to do a project in Finale. I just remember it being the most painful, teeth-pulling exercise in music generation that I'd ever experienced. I mean, there was nothing quite as hard as writing something in Finale. You had to kind of learn an entire way of working. It was like desktop publishing for music. So it wasn't creative in any way. There was no creativity in it. You just had to find the note and finally place the note on the stave. Did I even have a mouse? Was this even on a computer that had I don't even remember. I just have vivid feelings of the pain that it caused me in attempting to write a piece of music in this piece of software. That was a long, long time ago. It's improved immensely since then, but it still has, or always had, to me, the vibe of being desktop publishing, not compositional. You had Sibelius, which was the alternative really to Finale. Now Sibelius at that time required you to buy an entire different computer. You had to buy an Acorn RISC computer to run Sibelius on, or you bought Finale for the PC. So you had this entire system you had to buy for many thousands of pounds, but was creative and interesting. It was like you could write music as you go and experience it. Whereas Finale, you had to sit there and go, what do I do exactly? I have to place this and I place that. Oh, that's great. But again, these things evolve. I remember the CEO of Finale coming and visiting us at Turnkey and demonstrating the latest version of Finale. Now, this is still back in the 90s. And they'd introduced this sort of tempo thing where you had a foot switch and you could stomp on it as you played. And that allowed the software to know what the timing was as you played. So this is like the first time you could play in real time, I think, rather than dragging a single note onto a stave. You could actually record what you were playing. And so he came in and did this demo where he's stomping and he's playing, and it was all appearing on the screen quite brilliantly. It was just hilarious. But it did mean that you could vary the tempo and play in, and it would do it all rather brilliantly. Later on, they did things like the integrated virtual instruments way before Sibelius ever did. So I imagine it grew to be quite a piece of software. But it is no more. I mean, there's lots of really good notation software out there now. So I suppose unless it kept evolving, unless it kept changing, then it's never gonna compete. But anyway, it is now discontinued. They've stopped all bits of it, and the company that makes it, which is no longer Coda, it's a company called Make Music, I think, is offering cross grades to Steinberg Dorico as an alternative. But it's a bit of an end of an era. I mean, they were probably the first notation package out there, I'm pretty sure. like from the 80s, I think, on the Apple II and things like that. So amazing and sad, I imagine, for those people who enjoyed using it. I, on the other hand, never enjoyed using it. But it's sad to see such a legendary piece of software come to its end. So that's it. That'll do us. That is it. There's never a whole lot going on in the summer, so, you know, a shorter one than normal. Perhaps I might even under an hour. That would be amazing. But I still have lots and lots to do. So much to do. You wouldn't quite believe it. So much to do. In fact, I can't even quite cope with it. But hey, we soldier on in this world of synthesizers and modular. We just keep trying, giving it another go, another video, another article, bits and pieces, put it together. Whew, it's a life. It certainly is. Now, let's get together for a live stream, I think, this Sunday, 8 o'clock. Is that the 1st of September? I think it could be. Let's kick off the autumn, roughly speaking, with a good old live stream. We'll have a chinwag about stuff. I'll let you know what it is I've got lined up for reviews and articles and bits and pieces coming along. I do have a lot of plans. The summer has been very bitty for me with holidays and kids being around and not really having the time to do much in the way of videos. I've had to work as much as I can. So I definitely feel that September is going to open up a little bit and I'll be able to do some interesting things on some interesting products. And I have lots in the bag to come and some crazy ideas of things to do as well. So lots of good stuff to come. We can talk about that more on Sunday. Other things to mention. So Synth East is starting to come together for next February 2025. Don't forget it. I will keep reminding you about it. Tickets won't be on sale until after October, because in October we have both Synthfest and Baristronica, 2 exciting synthesizer shows, one in Sheffield, one in Bristol, which are definitely worth going to. I unfortunately can't make it to Synthfest this year for the first time in many years, but I will be at Baristronica with a bit of luck. In fact, I just bought my ticket. So do consider those as awesome synth festivals to do in October, but also just keep in the back of your mind that Synth East in Norwich 2025, end of February, is going to be fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Have I got some performances and stuff for you? Oh yes. I would also like to invite you to join me on Patreon. Patreon is a fabulous place where you get to give me money for stuff. Just because you think that it's worth supporting my channel. Because a lot of work goes into putting these videos together, and I don't get paid by synth manufacturers or anything like that. I only ever get paid for writing reviews from people like Sound on Sound and writing articles for websites like Perfect Circuit and Careers in Music, things like that. I don't take money from synthesizer manufacturers, and so running this channel, I try to make it as authentic and honest and opinion-led as possible. But that is hard to maintain without your help and without your support. So please like, share, subscribe, consider coming over to Patreon. I had plans for Patreon this year, or this end of the year. I'm putting together some sampled instruments from the sort of gear that I get to use, and that's going to be made available to Patreons exclusively, unless you want to pay for it separately, of course. But that will be coming along in time. But if you would like to support me just with the price of a coffee, or the price of a beer, or the price of a new synthesizer, whatever you like, come and join us on our merry little band and help me make more videos. That would be cool. I'm terrible at this. Oh, I really am. But hey, the other thing I wanted to say was that when I put together these videos, I'm exploring the communities and the internet for interesting things to talk about, because I no longer work in the day-to-day of synthesizer news. So I've no idea. I've no idea what's going on unless it happens to crop up in one of my feeds. So if you are out there and you're a manufacturer, somebody making something, a synthesizer, a module, piece of software, a DAW, piece of audio gear, anything, then let me know and I would do my best to include it in my monthly roundup. So if I don't know about it, I can't talk about it. And sometimes I miss stuff, and I appreciate that, and I don't want to miss interesting things. So if you're making something interesting and would like me to talk about it briefly, then get in touch. You just email me at robin@moltenmusictechnology.com. Couldn't be simpler, and I will stick it on my list. And we're all being well, if it's fascinating enough, I'll stick it in. It's that easy. That's all it takes. It's not clever or anything. And if you'd like me to do a video review of something, then I will consider that too. Got a lot on just at the minute, so I can't promise to do anything quick, but I'm always open to the idea. Just get in touch. It's easy. I don't charge anything. You just got to send me the gear. That's it. And lastly, I'd like to dedicate this episode to Inky to Cat, Lisa Beynon, who we lost very recently, who was a great member of the synthesizer community and will be sorely missed. Alright, I think that'll do. See you Sunday night, all being well, and in the meantime, go and make some tunes.